My husband inherited a massive fortune in Texas. He transformed overnight, cold, arrogant, and vicious enough to tell me I was no longer useful. He kicked me out of our home with nothing but a suitcase. Convinced his new wealth made him untouchable. But he didn't know that the inheritance carried a secret, one I accidentally uncovered, a truth powerful enough to unravel everything he thought he controlled. As I rebuilt myself from the ground up, I began planning a quiet, devastating revenge that would bring him to his knees. By the end, the truth about the money, the lies, and the betrayal forces both of us to face justice. In ways he never saw coming. I still remember the heat that day. Texas heat doesn't just sit on your skin, it climbs into your bones, settles in your chest, and makes every breath feel like a silent warning. I didn't know it then. But that warning was for me. I was standing in our kitchen, barefoot on the cool tiled floor, mixing lemonade the way he liked it, extra ice. A message from him. We need to talk when I get home. No emoji. No kiss. Just a command. I stared at those 5 words for a full minute, feeling something twist in my stomach. That tone wasn't new. But it had never felt this sharp. I didn't know he was already gone. Not physically, emotionally. But I'd learned that in the next hour. The sound of his truck pulling into the driveway usually made me smile. Today, it made me swallow hard. He walked in like he owned the entire state of Texas. Chin high. Shoulders stiff. A grin that made my blood run cold. That wasn't my husband. That was a stranger wearing his face. He tossed a thick envelope on the counter, the one where I kept the lemonade sweating in the heat. It's done, he said. The inheritance came through. I blinked. Wait already? I thought the lawyers said it could take months. He shrugged, pacing like someone who suddenly had too much energy to hold still. I hired better lawyers. Faster lawyers. Rechtlovers. I forced a smile. Well, that's good news, right? He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into the envelope and pulled out a single sheet of paper, a statement full of numbers so large they looked fake. Unreal. Cartoonish. 37 million, he said. Not happily. Not gratefully. Almost hungrily. I whispered, oh my God. Then he said something I'll never forget. He looked at me, through me, and his expression shifted into something cold, practiced. Final. I don't need you anymore. What? You heard me. I'm rich now. I don't need anyone slowing me down. My ears started ringing. The room felt smaller, tighter, like the heat outside had crawled inside with us. My hands shook so violently the lemonade glass rattled. I've supported you for years, I said, barely whispering. I was with you when you had nothing. I held this house together. He cut me off. And now I don't need that. Or you. I'm moving on. Pack your things. My heart stopped. Excuse me? He leaned in, eyes ice cold. I said pack. I want you gone by tonight. I stood frozen in the Texas heat, staring at a man I no longer recognized. When he added one last sentence, the one that told me this was deeper than greed. Oh, and don't touch anything in the safe. You have no idea what's in there. What was he hiding? Why was he suddenly afraid I'd see it? And why? Why did he look terrified when he mentioned it? Because in that moment, I realized something. The inheritance wasn't the beginning of his change. It was the beginning of the truth. What would you do if your spouse told you to pack your bags the moment they became rich? I didn't pack immediately. I couldn't. I stood there, my hands trembling, watching the man I loved drift around the house like he was inspecting property he already planned to flip. $37 million. And suddenly, I was disposable. But it wasn't the money that scared me. It was the way he looked at that safe. Like something inside it could destroy him. He walked upstairs, muttering to himself, pacing, making calls, fast calls, heated calls, slamming doors as he moved from room to room. Meanwhile, I stayed in the kitchen, staring at the lemonade melting into warm sugar water, wondering how everything could change in one afternoon. How does a man go from "I love you" to "get out" in a single sentence? I tried to breathe. Tried to think. But my mind kept replaying the moment his eyes shifted. The moment greed swallowed whatever humanity he had left. Outside, the cicadas screamed in the Texas heat. Inside, all I could hear was my heartbeat. Then I heard him shouting upstairs. Not angry shouting. Panicked shouting. No, listen, I told you, she can't know. Nobody can know until the transfer clears. My blood ran cold. Who couldn't know? And what transfer? I moved closer to the stairs, barely breathing. His voice lowered, frantic now. I don't care what my father promised you. The deal stands only if it stays quiet. She's out of the picture anyway. She's out of the picture. Like I was a problem to be removed. Something hot and sharp twisted in my chest. He hung up. Heavy footsteps. Then, silence. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. Finally, curiosity and survival instinct pushed me up the stairs. The bedroom door was cracked open. Inside, he was kneeling on the floor, punching numbers into the safe, a safe he had installed 2 months ago, claiming it was for important documents. But now, as he opened it, I saw something. Something that didn't look like documents at all. A stack of envelopes. A cell phone I'd never seen. And a contract folder stamped with the name of his father's attorney. The very attorney who handled the inheritance. What are you hiding? My foot creaked against the floorboard. He spun around. His face twisted. What are you doing? I heard you yelling. I was worried. Worried. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Please. Don't pretend you care now that you know I'm rich. I stepped back, stunned. I've cared when we had nothing. I cared when I worked 2 jobs while you were. He stood up so fast the safe door swung open behind him. Get out of my room. It's my room too. Not anymore. He slammed the safe shut, but his hand shook. Whatever was inside, it wasn't just valuable. It was dangerous. When he stormed past me, something fell from his pocket. A tiny folded receipt. He didn't notice, but I did. When I picked it up, my breath caught. It wasn't a store receipt. It was a bank slip. A transfer slip. And on it was a scribbled note in his handwriting. Don't let her find out. If she knows, everything collapses. Her. Me. He was hiding something tied to the inheritance, something big enough that my existence threatened it. I looked toward the safe, toward the man pacing downstairs, and toward the bank slip shaking between my fingers. Whatever he was hiding, it wasn't just money. It was a secret worth kicking me out for. A secret he was willing to lie, manipulate, maybe even destroy me to protect. But what could possibly be so important? He needed me gone tonight. If you found a bank slip suggesting your spouse was hiding something life-changing, would you confront them or investigate silently? Tell me in the comments. I didn't go downstairs right away. I sat on the edge of the bed, our bed, clutching that bank slip like it was the last piece of truth I had left. The note, the secrecy, the way he'd shoved me out of his life the second money touched his hands. It all pointed in one direction. This wasn't just about greed. This was about something he'd done behind my back. Something he was terrified I would uncover. I looked around our bedroom, the framed photos, the clothes we folded together, the memories layered into every corner, and suddenly none of it felt real anymore. It felt staged. Borrowed. Temporary. Like my whole marriage had been a waiting room he couldn't wait to exit once opportunity knocked. I had given him everything, my time, my energy, my loyalty, even when he didn't deserve it. And now all I had in return was a note scribbled on the back of a bank slip that said I needed to disappear. Somewhere in the house, I heard a drawer slam. He was moving with purpose. Urgency. Planning something. Then, through the thin walls, I heard his phone ring. His footsteps paused. And I heard him answer, voice low and sharp. I'm handling it. She'll be gone in an hour. Just make sure the second transfer goes through. I need that money. My hands went numb. Second transfer? He hadn't mentioned that before. The inheritance wasn't one lump sum. There was more coming, money he did not want me to know about. Then, something worse. I told you, once she's out, everything's clean. She can't contest anything. Contest? Contest what? That word hit me like a hammer. He wasn't just kicking me out. He was erasing me. When he moved toward the back door, I seized my chance. I slipped into the bedroom, dropped to my knees in front of the safe, and examined it. I already knew the passcode. He'd used it for everything: the garage keypad, his gym locker, even his phone once. His mother's birthday. I tried it. 4 beeps. A click. The door swung open. For a moment, my heart stopped. Inside, everything was neatly arranged, too neat. Like he wanted quick access. A burner phone. Stacks of envelopes with lawyer seals. And the thick contract folder from his father's attorney. I reached for it with shaking hands. I flipped through the pages. Deed transfers. Estate breakdowns. Asset lists. And then. Something I didn't expect. A prénuptial amendement. Filed 3 months ago. Signed. Stamped. But not by me. My signature, Ford. My blood turned cold. I wasn't imagining it. He had legally prepared to cut me out, and he'd started months before the inheritance even cleared. But why? What was he planning? Then I reached the last document in the file. One short paragraph. One sentence that explained everything. It read, "Inheritance funds may only be allocated to beneficiaries not currently undergoing marital litigation." He needed me gone so he could access the full money. He wasn't leaving me because he didn't love me. He was leaving me because staying married to me would cost him millions. I felt my heart fracture. Not break. Fracture, sharp, splintered, irreversible. I heard footsteps approaching the hallway. Slow. Heavy. Certain. He was coming back. I shoved the documents inside the safe as quietly as I could, but my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped them. The doorknob turned. My heart slammed against my ribs as I closed the safe door just in time. I spun around. And there he stood. Eyes narrowed. Jaw clenched. Not angry. Suspicious. "What do you think you're doing?" The bank slip burned in my pocket. The forged prenup burned in my mind. And his gaze burned into me like he already knew I'd uncovered something I wasn't supposed to see. "If you discovered your spouse forged your signature to cut you out of their inheritance, what would you do next?" He stood in the doorway like a shadow, cutting the room in half. His eyes flicked from my face, to the safe, and back again. "I asked you," he said, voice low and simmering. "What do you think you're doing?" My pulse thundered in my ears. I was afraid he could hear it. I forced my hands behind my back so he wouldn't see them shaking. "I was just getting my things," I said. "You told me to pack." "I'm trying." His expression didn't soften. In fact, he took a slow step into the room. "You were near the safe." "I was near my dresser," I lied. "You keep moving things around." I didn't want to forget anything. He didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Then he stepped closer. I felt the temperature drop. "You're not stupid," he murmured, almost thoughtful. Annoying sometimes, but not stupid. It was the way he said it. Like I wasn't a person, just an obstacle. A faulty appliance. I swallowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" He tilted his head slightly. "It means you get curious. You like to snoop. And you definitely heard my conversation earlier." My stomach twisted. "I didn't." "Don't lie to me." His voice snapped like a whip. "You were listening." Every muscle in my body tightened. This wasn't the man I married. This wasn't even the man from earlier. This was someone cornered, someone who knew the truth could destroy everything he was trying to pull off. He stepped closer again. Close enough that I could smell the cologne he only wore for business meetings. "You're going to leave," he said calmly. "But before you do, I need to know exactly what you heard." And something inside me broke again, but differently this time. Not fragile. Not helpless. Sharp. Hot. Defiant. "Why does it matter what I heard?" I said. "Unless you're hiding something that has my name on it." His jaw flexed. "Just answer the question." "No." I stepped back. "You don't get to order me around after throwing me out of my own home." He laughed, a cold, mocking sound. "Your home, really?" He gestured around. "You didn't pay for any of this." That cut deeper than I expected. I worked 2 jobs. I paid bills. I supported him when he had nothing. But he erased all of that in one breath. "You wouldn't have survived a year without me." He smirked. "And now I don't have to survive with you." His eyes dropped just for a second toward the pocket where the bank slip hid. A flicker. Just enough to tell me he suspected. He took another step toward me, slow, deliberate, predatory. "What's in your pocket?" My breath caught. I stepped back instinctively. He stepped forward. What, he repeated, is in your pocket? Fear crawled up my spine. He wasn't asking. He was demanding. And for the first time in my marriage, I was afraid he might actually put his hands on me. I'm done talking, I said, turning toward the door. He grabbed the doorframe, blocking my exit. Not until you show me. I tried to slip past him. He moved again, closing me in. This wasn't anger anymore. This was desperation. What are you hiding from me? He hissed. I clenched my teeth. Let me go. No. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't threatening. He was calculating. And that terrified me more than if he'd screamed. Then, someone banged on the front door downstairs. We both froze. 3 hard knocks. Then a voice. Delivery. Need a signature. He glanced toward the stairs. Then at me. He hesitated. And in that hesitation, I slipped past him, shoving my way into the hall. My heart pounded like it was trying to break through my ribs. I didn't know who the delivery person was. But right now, they were my only escape route. I rushed to the stairway, desperate for air, for space, for anything but his suffocating suspicion. Behind me, he called out. Don't go anywhere, we're not finished. I wasn't sure what scared me more. The fact that he forged documents behind my back. Or the fact that he was now desperate enough to trap me in the house until he knew exactly what I had discovered. And I still had the bank slip in my pocket. The proof he couldn't afford for me to see. If you were alone in a house with someone who suddenly became dangerous, what would you do first? Share your thoughts in the comments. I hurried down the stairs, my hand gripping the railing so tightly my knuckles turned white. Every step echoed through the house, or maybe that was just my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Please. Just let it be a normal delivery. Let me have a moment to breathe. The front door's frosted glass glowed harshly under the afternoon sun. A shadow stood behind it. I reached for the knob. My fingers trembled. Behind me, I heard his footsteps upstairs. Fast. Agitated. Coming my way. I opened the door. A stranger stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a brown polo shirt with no logo. Not UPS. Not FedEx. Not Amazon. My breath hitched. He held a small electronic pad in one hand. A cardboard box in the other. Package for... He squinted at the pad. The homeowner. He didn't say a name. Every hair on my neck stood up. I tried to disguise my voice. Who's it for? Just need a signature. He said flatly. House number matches. I glanced at the box. No label. No barcode. Nothing. It looked like a prop. Who sent it? I asked. He shifted his weight. Ma'am, I'm just the driver. A lie. His eyes darted too sharp, too observant for someone delivering packages. Upstairs, my husband's voice boomed. Don't open that door. The man's posture changed instantly. Tense. Ready. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a delivery man. This was someone my husband expected. Or someone he didn't, which might be worse. I stepped backward instinctively. The faux delivery man pushed the box toward me. Signature, he repeated, but the tone wasn't a request anymore. He took half a step into the doorway. He swallowed hard. Sir, I'm not signing anything until I know who sent. Ma'am, please. Before he could finish, my husband barreled down the stairs, shouting. Don't let her sign anything. The man froze. My husband froze. And in the silent collision of their eyes, I watched something pass between them. Recognition. Fear. And something that looked like a threat. What are you doing here? My husband snapped. The delivery man didn't answer. He simply lowered the box and said, You were supposed to call me. The timeline changed. He shoved the box into my husband's chest and brushed past both of us, storming down the walkway without another word. No signature. No paperwork. No delivery. Just gone. Like he'd completed his assignment. My husband slammed the door shut, locked it, then spun toward me. What did he say to you? I shook my head. Nothing. He just wanted a signature. For what? What was? He ripped open the box. Inside was a single object wrapped in brown paper. He tore the paper away. and my breath left my body. It was a flash drive. A plain, unmarked USB drive. He paled, actually paled, like someone had drained the blood from his veins. No, 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 he muttered. This wasn't supposed to happen yet. What is that? I asked, stepping back. He didn't answer. He just clutched the drive in his fist and bolted toward his office. I stood there, my chest tight, staring at the ripped box on the floor. A knock that wasn't a knock. A delivery that wasn't a delivery. A stranger who wasn't a stranger. A flash drive that terrified him. Whatever was happening, it wasn't just about inheritance money anymore. My husband was involved in something far bigger. Far darker. And everything in his behavior, the forged prenup, the phone calls. What did he get himself into? I followed him to the office door. It was shut. Locked. But I heard him talking on the phone, his voice shaking. She saw him. Yeah. She opened the door. No, she didn't sign it. I told you I'm handling it. A pause. Then. I don't care what my father promised you people. I'm not going to prison for this. My legs nearly gave out. Prison? People? Promise? What had his father dragged him into? What had he agreed to? And why was I suddenly a liability? I stumbled back from the door, the bank slip still burning in my pocket, my heart pounding so violently it hurt. He wasn't just kicking me out to protect his inheritance. He was kicking me out because something illegal, something dangerous, something worth prison time was tied to that money. And I wasn't supposed to know. But now I did. And if he was willing to kick me out, what else was he willing to do? If someone you trusted suddenly became tangled in something criminal and you discovered it accidentally, what would your next move be? Let me know in the comments. I didn't go back inside that day. Not for the flash drive. Not for the documents. Not for him. I realized in that instant that I had two choices. Stay and risk being trapped in his chaos. Or leave and start over, even if it meant nothing would be the same. I chose the latter. I grabbed my car keys, shoved the bank slip in my bag, and didn't look back. Not at the house. Not at him. Not at the life we had built together, the life he had just ripped away. I drove through the Texas heat, windows down, letting the wind sting my face as if it could wake me from this nightmare. Days later, I found a small apartment, nothing fancy, just a place to breathe. I changed my phone number. Closed social media. Made sure he couldn't find me easily. It was painful. Lonely. Necessary. I found a job as an administrative assistant in a small law firm. I made coffee, filed papers, answered calls, and for the first time in months, I felt something like control. I wasn't rich. I wasn't powerful. But I wasn't trapped either. And the more I rebuilt, the more I realized something dangerous. I was angry. Not the fleeting anger of someone wronged. Not the simple frustration of heartbreak. The anger that twists into clarity. The anger that becomes a plan. I started thinking about the flash drive. About the prenup. About everything he tried to hide. I needed information. I needed leverage. And most importantly, I needed proof. I reached out to old contacts, lawyers I trusted. Accountants who could trace financial movements, even a friend in law enforcement who owed me a favor. Step by step, I began to uncover the networks he was involved in. The shell companies. The suspicious transfers. The people who weren't supposed to be in his life. Every discovery made me more determined. Weeks passed. And then quietly, meticulously, I made my first move. I traced one of the smaller, seemingly innocent transactions. A transfer he had thought no one would notice. A tiny thread in a much larger web. I flagged it. I reported it anonymously. And the response was almost instantaneous. He panicked. I watched from the sidelines as one of his accomplices pulled back, worried about exposure. It was like a tiny earthquake shaking the foundation of his carefully constructed world. And I smiled. A real smile. For the first time since that inheritance, I felt a sliver of power. I realized something important. He thought wealth made him untouchable. He thought secrets could protect him. But he underestimated me. He underestimated how far someone he betrayed would go. And that was the first step toward justice. That night, I sat in my small apartment, the Texas wind rattling the window, thinking about him. He didn't know I was coming for him. He didn't know I was watching. And he didn't know that every mistake, every lie, was slowly being documented. For the moment I would make him pay. Have you ever discovered someone underestimated your resilience? How did you respond? Share below. Weeks of quiet observation and meticulous note-taking had paid off. I had pieced together enough to understand not just his actions, but his motives. And what I discovered was worse than I could have imagined. He hadn't just forged the prenup to cut me out. He hadn't just manipulated the inheritance. He had betrayed me to his father's business partners, people capable of ruining lives for profit so he could secure his fortune. I was at a coffee shop, laptop open, scanning documents I had obtained from my sources, when the truth hit me. A series of emails between him and one of the attorneys revealed everything. The inheritance wasn't clean. It came with strings, obligations, and debts he was trying to hide. He promised his father's partners that I would be removed to avoid any legal claim that might delay or expose their network. He knowingly put me at risk financially, legally, even personally for his own gain. He betrayed me before he ever kicked me out. Not for love. Not for loyalty. But for money. Pure, selfish greed. I felt my hands go numb as I read line after line. Every promise he had ever made felt hollow. Every memory of trust now seemed like a trap. And then I saw it. One email with the subject line, "She must not interfere." He labeled me as a threat. Not his partner. Not his wife. A threat. I closed the laptop, my chest tightening, and I knew one thing. He was a man who had planned my removal long before I ever left. I left the coffee shop that afternoon with a storm brewing inside me. How dare he think he could manipulate my life, my home, my future? How dare he underestimate me? I pulled into a parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel, and made a decision. I wouldn't just survive this betrayal. I wouldn't just protect myself. I would expose him. I would make him pay legally, financially, and emotionally. And I would make sure he understood, fully, the cost of betrayal. That night, I received an unexpected text on my new phone. No name. No number. "We know what you're doing. Stop now." I realized that even in hiding, he had reach. Even in my solitude, I was being watched. The betrayal was bigger than just our marriage. It was entangled with people willing to threaten me, to silence me. And he had set all of it in motion. I sat in my dark apartment, the Texas wind rattling the blinds, and whispered to myself. He thinks he's untouchable. He thinks I'll back down. But he hasn't seen the lengths someone he betrayed can go. Not yet. If someone orchestrated your removal from your own life for money and power, how far would you go to fight back? Comment below. The threatening text replayed in my mind all night. Who sent it? How did they get my number? How much did they know? I slept with the lights on. Not because I was weak, but because even strong people sometimes need illumination to think clearly. By morning, I knew one thing. I couldn't do this alone anymore. 2 days later, as I packed documents into a folder, a soft knock rapped on my apartment door. I froze. My heart pounded so loud I was sure whoever stood outside could hear it. I approached slowly, peeking through the peephole. My breath caught in my throat. It was Daniel. Daniel, the one friend my ex always hated. Daniel, quiet, observant, loyal to a fault. Daniel, who had once warned me, gently, that my husband wasn't the man he pretended to be. I opened the door. His expression said everything. I know. We sat at my tiny kitchen table, the hum of the old refrigerator filling the silence. Finally, he spoke. "I've been keeping an eye on things," he said. Then he slid an envelope across the table. Inside were photos, timestamps, and location logs, evidence my ex had hired someone to follow me. "Daniel, how did you?" He looked away, rubbing his palms together. "I work with someone," he said carefully. "Someone in cyber investigations. When you disappeared, I figured something was wrong. Then I saw the men watching your old place. I connected the dots and followed them. And then I found you." I didn't know whether to be relieved, or more terrified. Daniel leaned in, lowering his voice. "There's something you need to know," he said. "Your husband, he's not just hiding money. He's tied to people who funnel funds through businesses across borders. Your inheritance threatened the chain. That's why he forged the prenup. That's why he pushed you out. I felt the room spin. And now, Daniel added, they think you know too much. That's why they texted you. A cold chill ran down my spine. This was bigger than betrayal. This was organized. For the first time since everything fell apart, I felt something other than anger or fear. I felt supported. I looked at Daniel, really looked, and a flood of gratitude washed through me. You didn't have to do this, I whispered. He answered quietly, without hesitation. Yes, I did. That simple sentence hit deeper than anything my husband had said in years. Daniel wasn't just helping. He was joining me. He pulled out a small encrypted USB device. This, he said, is a copy of data from one of their servers. Transfers. Names, dates. Your husband's signature all over it. My heart stopped. This was the leverage I needed. This was the kind of evidence that could topple everything he built. But Daniel didn't sugarcoat it. With this, he warned, they will come for you. He swallowed hard. I'm not backing down, I said. He nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. Good. Then we do this the smart way. As Daniel stood to leave, he paused by the door. Lock everything, he said quietly. Tonight, they'll make their move. The door shut. Silence. Then another knock. Sharper. Heavier. And I knew instantly. That wasn't Daniel. If someone knocked on your door right after you learned you were being watched, would you open it or stay silent? Comment below. The knocking didn't stop. It didn't ease. It didn't hesitate. It hammered through my door like whoever stood outside had all the authority in the world. They knew. They knew Daniel had been here. They knew I had evidence. They knew I wasn't running anymore. I stood absolutely still, barely breathing, afraid even the sound of my heartbeat would give me away. Don't open it, I told myself. Then the doorknob twisted. Not violently. Not angrily. Worse. Calmly. Like someone testing a lock they already had the patience to break. A man's voice called through the wood. Low. Unhurried. Ma'am, this is the Houston County Sheriff's Office. We need to speak with you. My stomach dropped. Was it real? Or was it what they wanted me to believe? I didn't answer. After a long pause, the voice shifted, firmer now. We have reason to believe you're in danger. Please open the door. My breath hitched. If this was them, they were good. Professional. Trained. I backed away from the door, step by step, until my calves hit the kitchen cabinets. My phone buzzed. Instinctively, I grabbed it. Unknown number. I almost let it ring. Until something deep inside whispered. Pick up. I answered. Silence. Then. Don't open the door. My blood froze. It was Daniel. They intercepted the sheriff's dispatch, he whispered quickly. That's not law enforcement. Whatever you do, stay away from the door. My knees weakened. I don't know what to do, I whispered back. Go to the bedroom, he instructed. Lock yourself in. I'm 5 minutes away. But then he added, voice dropping even lower. And if they get inside before I arrive, hide the USB. Do you hear me? No matter what happens. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. Then he said the words that turned my blood to ice. They're not here to scare you. They're here to erase you. A loud crack shook the apartment. Not the door. The frame. They were forcing it. I ran bare feet slapping the tile into the bedroom and locked the door, chest heaving. Another crack. Then a third. They were splintering the wood. I scanned the room. Closet? Too obvious. Under the bed? First place they'd look. My eyes landed on the AC vent. Small. But wide enough for a USB stick. With trembling fingers, I removed the panel, shoved the encrypted drive into the darkness, and screwed it back on just as, boom. The front door finally gave way. I clapped my hands over my mouth to quiet my breathing. Check the rooms. A voice barked. Heavy footsteps entered my apartment. The bedroom door shook violently as someone rammed their shoulder into it. Then again. And again. I backed into the corner, tears stinging my eyes, heart thundering. I could almost smell the danger through the door, sweat, metal, adrenaline. One final slam. Crash. The door burst open. A man stood in the doorway, masked, tall, wide shoulders, breathing hard through a cloth bandana. He spotted me instantly. "There you are," he said. And then he took a step closer. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I couldn't blink. This was it. This was where everything ended. But then, the man froze mid-step. His eyes darted behind me. And I heard it too. The sound. The small, unmistakable click of a gun being cocked. A low, steady voice rose from behind me. "You take one more step," the voice said, "and you won't leave this room." I turned slowly. And my jaw dropped. It wasn't Daniel. It was my husband. He stood there, gun raised at the intruder, eyes cold, but not at the man. At me. "Leave us," he ordered the masked man. Then, once they were alone, he lowered the weapon and stared straight into my soul. "You shouldn't have taken the USB. If the spouse who betrayed you suddenly became the one holding the gun, would you trust them or run? Tell me in the comments." I froze, heart hammering, as my husband stood there, gun trained on the masked intruder. Everything inside me screamed, "He's the enemy. He betrayed you. He tried to erase you." But he was acting strangely protective. Protective of me? The masked man hesitated, then lunged forward. My husband fired once, a deafening crack, and the intruder crumpled to the floor. I stumbled backward, hitting the wall, unable to breathe. I didn't know whether to run, or scream, or collapse. After the intruder went down, my husband's eyes locked onto mine. Cold, sharp, calculating. "You shouldn't have taken the USB, he said again. "You don't understand the consequences." "Consequences?" I whispered, voice shaking. "You mean the ones you created when you forged a prenup, kicked me out, and lied to everyone?" His expression didn't falter. "I saved you," he said simply. "From them. From everything. You didn't see it coming. You weren't supposed to. But I can't let anyone touch you, or that drive." He stepped closer, lowering the gun slowly, but keeping his eyes trained on mine. "Do you know why I left the house the way I did?" I shook my head. "I had to make it look like I was gone. Disposable, irrelevant. If they suspected anything, they would have moved faster, harder. I couldn't risk that. You were a target." I stared, disbelief mixing with confusion, anger, and an involuntary flicker of hope. All this time, I thought he abandoned me for greed. He did it to protect me from a threat I didn't even know existed. He put the gun down, but his voice remained sharp. "This isn't over. They'll come after the money. They'll come after you. But we can stop them, together. Strategically. Slowly. Every step documented, every move calculated." He gestured toward the living room. "They know about the inheritance. They know about the USB. And they think I'll protect it alone. That's where they're wrong. I need your help." I swallowed hard, my stomach twisting. Help him? The man who betrayed me? Or let him continue? And risk losing everything? Together. We mapped the intruder's entry, their connections, and the timeline. We found weaknesses, small, overlooked mistakes, digital footprints, financial transactions. And then I realized something. The betrayal, the forged prenup, the kick-out. They all gave me leverage. They underestimated me. They underestimated us. I could feel the first surge of vengeful energy, the kind that fuels precision. And I knew, deep down, that the execution of the plan had already begun. That night, as we watched the masked intruder tied up in the living room, my husband leaned toward me. "Tomorrow, we hit the first target. One mistake, and they'll crumble. Are you ready?" I looked at him, my betrayer, my protector, my reluctant ally, and realized one truth. This wasn't just revenge. This was justice. If you had the power to expose someone who betrayed you, would you take the first strike or wait to ensure victory? The night was heavy with tension. The city lights outside my apartment flickered like they were in sync with my heartbeat, rapid, uneven, anxious. And there he was, standing beside me, the man who had betrayed me. Now my unlikely ally. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to scream, curse, hit. But I couldn't. Not yet. I turned toward him, voice shaking but determined. "You lied to me. You pushed me out. You tried to erase me from everything, from our life. From the inheritance. From the truth. He stayed silent, eyes fixed on me. You made me believe you didn't care. You made me believe I wasn't enough. And now you ask me to trust you. He finally looked at me, his gaze softening for a fraction of a second. I know, he said quietly. And I don't expect forgiveness. Not yet. I needed you to survive long enough to see the truth. I couldn't let them take you or the inheritance without you knowing everything. My knees nearly gave out. I wanted to scream. Then why did you betray me? But I stopped. I wanted answers more than catharsis. He sighed, pacing a little. I forged the prenup, he admitted. I wanted to control the inheritance. I didn't think it would come to this. I thought, if I could protect you from them, maybe it would all be temporary. I made a mistake, a massive mistake. And you deserved none of it. Hearing him admit it, actually admit it, broke something inside me. Not just anger. Not just betrayal. Heartbroken, yes, but there was also the tiniest spark of understanding. Before I could process it, the sound of a car pulling up outside made both of us freeze. Daniel's warning echoed in my mind. They're watching. They're always watching. We both knew what that meant. The threats weren't over. Not by a long shot. I clenched my fists. You still want me out of the way, don't you? I asked. His jaw tightened. He hesitated, then shook his head slowly. No, this ends tonight with them. Not with us. I wasn't sure if I believed him. But I knew one thing. I had all the leverage now. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I know I hurt you. I know I broke trust. I can't undo that. But I can fix the damage outside these walls. I need you, and I don't just mean for the plan. I need your mind. Your instincts. I need you to be my partner in this. He swallowed hard. I wanted to scream, slap, run, and cry all at once. And maybe that was the point. I didn't know how I felt anymore. But one thing was clear. If we failed, it wouldn't just be me who paid. It would be everything. As we prepared to execute the first strike against the network, my husband turned toward me, eyes serious, almost pleading. Trust me, one mistake, and they'll take everything, including you. Are you ready to step into the fire? I looked at him, the man who broke my heart, who betrayed me, who protected me in ways I couldn't yet comprehend. And I realized. Stepping into the fire wasn't a choice anymore. It was survival. If the person who hurt you becomes the one you have to rely on to survive, would you trust them or go it alone? We started early the next morning. Every step we took felt calculated, rehearsed, like walking a tightrope over a pit of fire. Daniel monitored the network, my husband handled the inside logistics, and I became the eyes, the observer, the silent strategist. We had a plan. A solid plan. But even the strongest plans have cracks. The moment we tried to access one of the shell accounts, alarms tripped. We didn't even know they existed. Not digitally. Not in the records Daniel had pulled. The network had layers I hadn't imagined. Layers that pushed back with force. Our first strike, meant to be clean, became messy. Abort. Daniel hissed into the encrypted phone. Too many eyes. I swallowed hard, frustration boiling in my chest. All our preparations stalled. They weren't going down without a fight. Hours passed. We tried again. And again. Every failed attempt reminded me of everything he had taken from me. It was exhausting. Physically, emotionally, mentally. And the more I pushed, the more I realized this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about proving that I was unbreakable. Then, a call came from an unexpected source. Unknown number. I hesitated, part of me wanted to ignore it. But the voice on the other line was chillingly familiar. Stop. Or everything you love will be gone by sunrise. They had learned about us. They knew the three of us were working together. And now, they were moving against me. I looked at my husband. His jaw tightened. You knew this was coming, I accused. You knew it wasn't going to be simple. He didn't flinch. He only nodded. Yes, he admitted. And we're ready, but not all plans survive their first hit. By evening, we realized we had underestimated the network's reach. Daniel reported. Security cameras outside our apartment had been tampered with. Emails had been intercepted. Someone had physically accessed the building during the day. We weren't just racing against time anymore. We were racing against a well-funded, ruthless operation. The realization made my stomach churn, but also sparked a dangerous determination. If they wanted war, we would give them justice with consequences they'd never anticipate. As we sat in the dim light of my apartment, laptops open, plans rewritten, a shadow appeared at the window. Someone was watching. Closer than ever. And this time, I knew there was no hiding. If your enemies anticipate every move, would you double down on your plan or retreat to survive? I hadn't slept in days. Every second was a calculation. Who was watching? What was being monitored? Which step would trigger the network's retaliation? And then, the truth hit me like a lightning bolt. A detail Daniel uncovered in the digital trail made everything suddenly clear: the inheritance, the forged prenup, the threatening messages, the intruder, the masked men. It wasn't just about money. It was about power, influence, and a secret deal my husband's father had made with the network to secure control over everything. Daniel pointed to a series of encrypted emails on the screen. They weren't just after your inheritance, he explained, voice low, urgent. They were after you, because you knew something your husband didn't fully understand. They needed the inheritance legally cleaned from you, but the twist is, your husband's father made them believe he'd handle it alone. Every betrayal, every lie, every calculated move suddenly had a deeper meaning. I realized that I hadn't just been the victim of greed, I had been the key to a multi-million-dollar conspiracy. The moment I understood, I wasn't scared anymore. Not really. I wasn't naive. Not anymore. I had leverage. I had proof. And now I had the knowledge to use the network's own rules against them. I looked at my husband. You knew? I asked, voice low, almost whispering. Yes, he said, nodding. But I didn't tell you everything because I couldn't risk you being targeted. I had to make you disappear from their radar, until we could strike. I felt a cold clarity wash over me. I had been underestimated. By everyone. And now, I could flip the script entirely. Daniel handed me a second USB one he had secretly prepared. A digital arsenal of evidence against everyone in the network. Offshore accounts, communication logs, names of complicit associates. We weren't just playing defense anymore. We were about to go on the offensive. I glanced at my husband. The man who betrayed me. The man who protected me. The man who had underestimated me. It didn't matter anymore who I trusted. Because now I held the ultimate leverage. That night, as the wind rattled the blinds and the city slept unaware, Daniel looked over his shoulder at me. Tomorrow, the network falls. But you must understand. Once we start, there's no turning back. They will fight. They will try to destroy everything. Are you ready to burn it all down? I clenched my fists. Yes. I was ready. If uncovering a secret gives you the power to destroy those who betrayed you, would you strike immediately or wait for the perfect moment? Comment below. The night Miami sky hung low, thick with the kind of humidity that felt like it was listening, waiting, recording every breath. I could feel it pressing against my skin as I stood outside the building where everything had begun, and where everything was about to change. Daniel walked beside me, silent. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't trying to lighten the moment. He knew this chapter wasn't one of those moments you laugh your way through. Are you sure you want to do this tonight? He asked, his voice low. I'm not sure I want to, I admitted. Because tonight wasn't about confronting my old boss anymore. Tonight was about exposing him. Not just for what he did to me. For what he did to everyone. The building's lobby lights reflected off the marble floor like a stage set for a final act. It would have been poetic if the truth behind all this wasn't so twisted. Daniel held the manila folder tight in his hand. The documents inside had taken weeks to gather. Payroll discrepancies, falsified vendor invoices, kickback trails, internal emails hidden behind a wall of encryption that Daniel had cracked only after multiple sleepless nights. He never said it out loud, but I knew. He wasn't doing this because it was the right thing. He was doing it because he remembered the night I broke down on his couch and said I felt like my boss had stolen a piece of my life I'd never get back. He wanted to give it back. All of it. We walked into the elevator. Daniel hit the button for the 11th floor. The doors slid shut. Silence swallowed us. Then, ding. The elevator opened, and there he was. My old boss. Standing in the hallway outside the conference room, arms crossed, smirk ready like he'd been waiting for the precise moment to play the hero in a script he had written in his head. "Well, well," he said, voice dripping with mock surprise. "You actually showed." His eyes skimmed me, dismissive as ever, then locked onto Daniel. "And you brought your little tech boy," he added. Daniel's jaw tightened. He stayed quiet. "Let's get this over with," I said. We stepped into the conference room. My old boss shut the door behind us with a quiet click, the kind that was meant to intimidate. He sat at the head of the table. We sat across from him. "Before you try anything dramatic," he said, leaning back, "you should know I've already spoken to legal. Anything you think you're about to pull, it won't work. You quit. You have no leverage." I stared at him for a long, measured moment. Then I slid the printed copy of my resignation letter across the table. Not the first draft he had mocked. Not the second draft he had underestimated. The real one. The one he never knew I wrote. The one that explained everything he didn't want anyone to uncover. His smirk cracked. "What is this?" he asked. "Your storm," I said softly. Daniel placed the manila folder beside it. "And this," Daniel added, "is the forecast." My old boss reached for the papers, but Daniel's hand snapped down on the folder, pinning it to the table. "There's something you should understand," Daniel said quietly. "If you open this, there's no going back." My boss scoffed. "You think you can scare me with empty threats?" Daniel leaned in. "They're not threats." For the first time that night, I saw something flicker in my old boss's eyes. Not anger. Not annoyance. But worry. He grabbed the folder. Opened it. Page after page, his face drained. His knuckles whitened around the papers. His breathing hitched. And then the inevitable. This is fake," he snapped. "You can't prove any of this." "I don't have to," I said. "Because those who can, already have copies." He froze. Daniel folded his hands calmly. "She's not bluffing." "I made sure of that," I added. My old boss opened his mouth, but the words refused to come out. This was the moment he realized the game was no longer chess. It was checkmate. And he wasn't the one holding the board. He tried one last time. "You don't want to do this. Think about your future. Think about your reputation. This could ruin you too." "No," I said. "This will free me." I stood. Daniel stood with me. My old boss remained seated, chest rising and falling too quickly, unable to find the arrogance he once drowned himself in. At the door, I paused and turned back. "You laughed when I quit," I said. "But tonight, you're going to learn why I walked away." I pushed the door open. Daniel followed. The hallway felt lighter than the air outside. We walked toward the elevator. Behind us, in the conference room, my old boss was finally silent because for the first time in his life, he didn't have a move left to play. And the storm he thought he controlled? It had finally arrived. The office lights felt almost gentle after the intensity of the confrontation. The storm had passed, but the air was still charged with the tension of unfinished battles. I sat in a quiet corner, the resignation letter and the evidence folder stacked beside me. For a long time, I just breathed. It wasn't triumph yet. It wasn't victory. But it was peace in its first fragile form. Daniel sat across from me, still tense but slightly relaxed. "I never doubted you," he said quietly. I laughed softly. "Neither did I admitted. I doubted everything else. Everyone else. But never me." The hotel lights outside reflected in the window like distant stars. I realized, for the first time since this nightmare began, I could finally see the bigger picture. I hadn't just survived betrayal. I hadn't just executed revenge. I had reclaimed myself. I thought back to the day my husband kicked me out. I remembered the emptiness, the loneliness, the fear. I remembered standing in the apartment, shaking, trying to understand what had happened. And now I understood one truth. Every humiliation, every betrayal, every threat had forged me into someone stronger. Someone incapable. Someone who would never be underestimated again. It wasn't just about revenge. It wasn't just about exposing lies. It was about resilience, about claiming your power even when everything seems lost. I looked at Daniel. "Thank you," I said softly. "For seeing me. For believing. For helping me remember that I'm not just a victim in someone else's story." He nodded, eyes steady. "You're not just surviving," he said. "You're thriving." I left the building that night with a lightness I hadn't felt in years. The city's night air wrapped around me like a promise. A promise that even after the deepest betrayals, there's always a way forward. And as I walked into the unknown, I realized this was only the beginning of living on my terms. But even as I smiled, I knew some battles hadn't fully ended. Some truths would still come to light. Some consequences were still on the horizon. And I was ready for all of them. The text buzzed on my phone. Unknown number. I hesitated, then opened it. "You've won the first battle. But the final chapter begins now." I knew then, the last act was coming. And this time, it would be absolute. Even after reclaiming everything, would you face the final storm to ensure true justice? Comment below. The morning sun burned through the blinds, scattering golden streaks across the apartment floor. I felt it on my skin, on my face. Like the world itself was acknowledging a shift, a new chapter, finally mine. Everything had led to this. Betrayal. Threats. Fear. Manipulation. But I had endured it. I had survived it. And now, I had the power to decide what came next. I met with my ex one last time in the law office. He sat across from me, a mix of defiance and regret on his face. I slid the evidence folder toward him. "This is the life you tried to steal," I said. "This is the truth you tried to bury. And it's out now. Everyone knows." He swallowed hard. I didn't." "You lied," I interrupted. "You betrayed. You underestimated me. And yet, I survived. I didn't just fight back. I claimed my life back. I stood. This isn't revenge anymore, this is justice. And it's complete." Walking out of the building, I realized something important. Betrayal doesn't have to break you. Humiliation doesn't have to define you. Threats and injustice only shape you into something stronger if you refuse to surrender. The power of resilience, clarity, and calculated action is unstoppable. And sometimes, the person you thought you lost to betrayal becomes the mirror reflecting your own strength. I sat on my balcony, the Texas wind brushing against my face. I thought about the nights of fear, the days of planning, the moments when I questioned my own courage. And I realized, I am no longer a pawn in someone else's game. I am the author of my own story. I am my own storm. Daniel joined me quietly, handing me a cup of coffee. We didn't need words. The silence said it all. We had survived. We had won. Together. I looked into the camera, imagining you there with me. What would you do if someone tried to erase your life? How would you reclaim your power? Don't forget. The strength to survive betrayal, expose lies, and reclaim your life is already within you. Have you experienced this? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories like this. The storm had passed. The fire had burned. And from the ashes, I had rebuilt myself, stronger, wiser, unbreakable. I walked into the future on my terms. And this time, nothing could stop me.